Folks, it is feeling real now. It is a Talking Tuesday on an Ohio State game week. That's right. Real football gonna be played in the Horseshoe on Saturday and a real live press conference, game week press conference in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center at noon today, which is Tuesday. That's Bill Landis. I am Austin Ward. It is the Podcast Daily. It is Talking Tuesday. We are going to hear from Ryan Day. We're going to hear from Jim Knowles. And we're going to hear from the starting quarterback of the Buckeyes. That's Will Howard. And Bill Landis is going to have questions. Mm-hmm. What are they? I don't know. We're about to find out.
I don't know either. We're gonna find out as we go along in this episode. Now, I have there is something I actually have been thinking about since the last time we talked not the last time we talked to Ryan Day, but the last time we had Day in the coordinators that Thursday that Will Howard was named the starting quarterback. And it is this idea of the starting quarterback as the run game coordinator, which is something that Ryan Day said, and then something that Chip Kelly said. And I wanted to follow up on it at the time, and I didn't. I think maybe I asked about Tegra for Chip instead. And of course, I was the one who had to lob the softball. Do you have a starting quarterback question at Ryan Day that day? So I didn't get an opportunity to really ask anything about it. And I even still might save it for the next time we talk to Chip, which I'm assuming will be next Tuesday. But since we will have Ryan and Will, I do kind of want to get into that more with them. I think it speaks to the direction this offense is headed, because I just don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I've never heard Ryan Day say that about the quarterback before. And maybe that's just the Chip thing, and he says it all the time, and people who have covered UCLA and Oregon and the Eagles and the 49ers are like, yeah, dude, he says it every week. Maybe that'll be the case. We'll come to learn. But I'm just envisioning an offense that obviously is going to run the ball a lot more, I think, than it has previously, and want to hang its hat on that, but also have more read option stuff and more run pass option stuff, and maybe run pass options. I think just Chip's going to do some things that are drastically different, I think, from what we've seen. I'm not talking reshaping the offense in its entirety, but I think accentuating some different things maybe than Ryan Day did at times, stuff that has been in the playbook and stuff we've seen a time or two occasionally. Maybe we'll just see more regularly now. And Will Howard is going to be the guy that I think is going to be entrusted to make a lot of decisions. And we've had a lot of conversations in the past with Ryan Day about quarterback setting protections and those kind of decisions. And I'm interested in that too. I would like to pick Will Howard's brain and Ryan Day's brain on what he thinks of Will's strengths there. But the idea of having an offense that is predicated at least more on, and maybe not solely on, but more than it has been in the past on post-snap decisions in terms of when to run and when not to run and what kind of run calls to get into. I do think is interesting, and it's mostly that I just hadn't heard it put in those terms before. So I would like to ask a couple questions, frankly, about kind of how that all operates. So we'll see. I'll have to feel it out, but I think that's where my mind is right now heading into Tuesday, at least as it pertains to Ryan Day and Will Howard.
We've heard a number of times, publicly or privately, either one, when Ohio State quarterbacks would be getting ready for the NFL draft prep, whether that was Dwayne Haskins, whether that was Justin Fields, whether that was CJ Stroud. This notion that it was so easy to play quarterback at Ohio State and the system does all the work for them. And Ryan Day doesn't really like that, appreciate that. And it undermines, I think he has a quarterback friendly system to suggest that it is easy to operate it and make the decisions and handle the responsibility that comes with that position. It's definitely not. And you can ask anyone who's ever played the position for Ohio State, for Ryan Day, how much is on their plate and how much work goes into playing it well. But I only bring that up to say that has largely been a conversation about handling the passing attack, that it is an NFL style passing attack, and they are being prepared for the next level, and they're being asked to do things and make decisions at a very high level. But it has almost always been about their development and what happens through the air. I don't remember it ever happening, to your point, Bill, about, well, now you're also the on-field run game coordinator. Certainly that wasn't going to play to the skill set that Kyle McCord had. And I think if you go back to CJ Stroud, that was more of a depth chart decision. And once things were, once you got to the college football playoff and you're playing Georgia and you had to empty the deck, like they ran and they did more things, and CJ Stroud had some of that on his plate. Certainly Justin Fields, we know, even if they didn't want him to run 10 plus times a game, some of that stuff was certainly in his purview as well. But this is a different conversation about Will Howard that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day are having than any other Ohio State quarterback probably since JT Barrett. And Ryan Day only had 1 year to work with JT, so I don't know that tag was ever assigned to him, run game coordinator. So that is an interesting part. What does it mean? That's, I think, a great question, because I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it, because the other piece of it is all those things you said about the passing game are true. Like, they're not going away. This is added mental capacity that the quarterback has to have. And like, CJ Stroud was an incredibly bright quarterback. Probably for as much as we talked about it, we probably didn't talk about it enough. And it's not something you've heard a whole lot about Will Howard. Not to say that he doesn't think the game, very well, or think it thoroughly. I think just by pure osmosis, playing as much as he has, he probably does. I don't know how you evaluate that when you're trying to bring in a quarterback, but like, from watching on film, maybe there are certain things you look for. But I am now finding myself like very interested in the football IQ of Will Howard, and maybe just from the standpoint of, is that a part of his game or a trait or whatever that we have not talked enough about leading up to this point. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about Will Howard. He's going to be this team's starting quarterback. They're going to play a lot of football games, so it's not like we have to unearth all of that and really dive into it all this week. I maybe because I was just so interested in whether or not he was going to find ways to improve upon what he was at Kansas State, or what kind of shape this offense was going to take on with Chip Kelly and Will Howard here. I never stopped to think about, like, well, yeah, I guess Will probably has to be a pretty smart guy to play this position. As long as he has in like a fairly straight up kind of pro style system at Kansas State, and now to come here and handle everything that Ohio State is throwing at him. I think there are certainly ways you could, for lack of a better word, like dumb down the offense for a guy who's not quite ready to handle that. But it doesn't sound like Ohio State's doing that at all. It sounds like they are putting this guy in like a graduate level course with his offense, with all the things that Ryan Day has done from the passing perspective, now adding what Chip Kelly does from a run game perspective, which I think is pretty extensive and a lot to handle. And even if at times it looks like it's maybe the same kind of a run call, like to do it out of different looks, to do it with different personnel groupings, to do it against different defensive looks, you're just asking a lot of your quarterback. And I think just from the times we have had to talk to Will, that he can handle all of that, but maybe we've not been giving him enough credit for how much he can handle that. Or I guess we're going to learn how much he can handle, right, once these games start. But I have a feeling that he'll be pretty good at that, because otherwise I don't think they would have talked about it in the first place.
There's one play from training camp that I just cannot get out of my mind. I've mentioned it probably 3 or 4 times over the course of the month, that I think wraps up everything that you're talking about, and also encapsulates both the fact that the RPO passing decisions remain, and the RPO rushing decisions now include the quarterback in a way that they haven't in a while, which is that it looked like it was an out. I don't know. I'm not an X's and O's person, and it was one play and I'm in the end zone, so I don't know. It looked like it was sort of an outside zone for either Travion or Quinshawn going to one side of the field. Emeka is going back the other side of the field and becomes an option in the flat off of the play action. And then Will Howard has a decision. He's either going to, he could have, I don't know if he has the option to do all 3 things. I would assume that it exists in a sort of triple option format to use either one of the best running backs in the country, one of the best wide receivers in the country, and a quarterback who has the athleticism then to keep, if the defense decides, well, somebody's gonna have to go tackle Quinshawn Judkins or cover Emeka Ibuka. Well, then what? You have a one-on-one opportunity or nobody defending Will Howard on the run. Like, there's reads at all 3 levels of that, and athletes then, depending on what Will Howard becomes here, which it looks like he is more than capable, even against Ohio State's defense, of keeping and making a play with his legs on his own. So, like, that is a run game coordination, that's pass game coordination, and that is calling your own number and then going and being a dude. So, like, that play, it's sick. I can't stop thinking about it, and I don't know how you defend it. And if Will Howard is able to operate something like that at a high level, like that's what elevates the entirety of the system to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I remember that play too. And that is like the end result of that play when you're just sort of flipping it in the flat to like a wide open Emeka Ibuka, you might think to yourself, well, that was pretty simple. It's not like they either get through 4 steps to get to that point, right? You need to make 3 correct reads to get to that point and do it in a split second's time. And I think that's where Will Howard's experience comes into play. It's why like maybe he won't have a bunch of like 50-yard touchdown passes this year, but I think he's going to put up some nice numbers because I think he will more often than not make the right decision. And that's such a huge part of this. And I don't know, I don't want this come off the like this may come off the wrong way. It's not my intention. Like you put Braxton Miller and JT Barrett in a situation where they have the opportunity to run or throw it. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep the ball, they're going to run. You put CJ Stroud or Dwayne Haskins in an opportunity where they can either run or throw it. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep it and throw it probably no matter what because they trust their arm, and why wouldn't they? I think you might actually find sort of that perfect balance with Will Howard because I don't think Will Howard wants to run the ball a dozen times a game. He will if he has to, if that's what the game calls for. But I don't think he's so like, I don't even know what the right word for it is. It's like infatuated is not the right word because like you should be confident.
Confident.
Yeah, you should be confident in your skill set. And I think Will Howard is, but I just think he's just like smart enough to press the right button. I think
maybe confidence is not the word. Like if you're a BPS,
yeah,
arrogant,
but like the right, like good,
the right kind of arrogant, not negative, positively confident to the point of arrogance.
Yes, borderline arrogance. Yeah. I just don't know that Will is that kind of quarterback. I think Will is just sort of, I'm going to do what this play dictates to me. Like whatever this situation speaks to me, I'm going to do that thing. And I think that will consistently yield good results for this offense. And like the guys I just listed, like they definitely had, they were the orchestrators of excellent offenses. But there were times, especially with like CJ and Dwayne, where Ohio State was like kind of in that RPO world because they didn't want to run the quarterback. And that was sort of the way to equate numbers. I felt like the best decisions weren't always made. And sometimes that held the offense back. Not a lot, but sometimes. I think Will Howard will avoid that. So it's like, it's a decision-making conversation, yes, but it's also just sort of I don't know, just an approach to the position, I think, that maybe is a little different with Will Howard, who I think is maybe just kind of willing to not always put it all on like his back to like go make a play. Sometimes the easy read is the right one and the best one for your team. And I think Will embraces that idea.
That's a pretty deep conversation for Will Howard for the first Talking Tuesday. I am a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop that all on his feet before the Akron game.
Let's go dive right into it. Like, I'm definitely more interested in that than some of the surface level conversation, but I am also like intrigued by the leadership component. Like I think that people are going to ask him how he took the news, the way he responded to being named the starting quarterback, and like his responses will be worth listening to for sure. And this sounds like a simple, maybe even bad question, lazy question, but like not just when did somebody feel comfortable at Ohio State, but like this is the person who's the starting quarterback for Ohio State, and he is not a captain, but he's going to have to act like a captain. I wonder at what point, not did he like feel like he could run Ohio State's offense, but like, when did he feel like the locker room was responding to him? When were they paying attention to him? How much is he talking? Because a lot of the discourse that existed around Kyle McCord by the midway point and into November last year was like, he doesn't seem like he's that excited in a pregame, and the follow away jumper dance moves were not all that inspiring or impressively athletic to watch. And like people from the outside didn't seem to embrace Kyle McCord as a leader. And I think there may have certainly been some element of truth to that inside the locker room. I don't think that he was bad at it, but he's certainly not as outwardly vocal as some other people that we have covered at Ohio State. So I think that's again 4 or 5 different questions wrapped up into one. But like I wonder how Will Howard feels like he's doing as a leader, or if he feels like he is a leader already at this point without having had the opportunity to go into the horseshoe and play for the first time wearing that uniform.
Yeah, I think that's worth asking because I'm wondering like how you get to that point. Like because I one of the things that Ryan Day said when he named Will Howard the starter, which I thought was important, was like that the team. I think he used that feel word again. That the team feels Will Howard's presence. I don't know that Ryan Day ever said that about any quarterback last year. And I know I certainly like didn't feel that last year from that position. It just felt like whether it was Kyle McCord in the starting role or like Devin Brown trying to chip away at it, like no one ever seems super comfortable. And there's value in, I guess, being uncomfortable and like continuing to push yourself. I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about complacency. I'm talking about comforting your own skin, like in your leadership style. And I think Will Howard probably has that. But yeah, but like when that happened, when he felt like it happened, how he went about trying to foster that, I think are all worthy discussion points for the guy that even though he's not a captain, he is going to be a leader on this team. He has to be. It's inherent in his position. Like I hope he doesn't get asked like, what do you think about not being a captain? Because I don't care. Like he is one. He's the quarterback. So maybe he will get asked that. I'm sure he'll have a good answer for it. But that is a big piece of this. Like I just there's different ways to go about it. Like CJ Stroud was not sort of like the most rah-rah guy in the world, but he had some juice to him. And like all I had to do was watch him throw the football one time. Like, yep, that guy. I'm going to battle with that guy. I think Will Howard, maybe not. Will Howard probably won't wow you the same way with the way he can throw the football, although he throws it fine. But I think he's got some of the thing to him that I think like Devin Brown has that we've talked about a lot, which is just like there's like a magnetism that is natural to him that people kind of want to follow. So like when you have that, do you try to accentuate it so people like definitely do follow you and follow you quickly, or you just trust that, like I got this, I'm going to give off the right kind of aura sort of, and people will get on board with what I'm doing. I think that is like a fascinating balance of how you go about kind of galvanizing people around you.
Yeah. It's going to be great to see that. And it's one of the, I think, key dynamics to watch in the first few weeks, because anytime there's a new starting quarterback at Ohio State, you're going to be under scrutiny. And that's fair. But it isn't just about the way he plays and running, multiple options, run game coordinator, the stuff that's between the lines, like critically important, obviously. But this team is chasing something much larger. And if you're going to win a national championship and you're going to survive a playoff where you have to win at least 3 times against really good opponents right in a row, like your quarterback is going to be put to the test as a leader, as a pain tolerance manager. Like, I mean, everything you can think of. Like, it is going to be very difficult to do that. It is why you don't see a lot of, there are exceptions, but you don't see a lot of fluky quarterbacks putting on Super Bowl rings. Like that is the position that is going to take you where you want to go. And you can maybe get around that in a different way in college football at times. But I think that this playoff format is going to accentuate that in a way that it already exists in the NFL. So I think getting a gauge of where Will Howard is in that doesn't mean that he has to be the best quarterback in the country, but he, probably needs to be in the top 5 if Ohio State's going to do what it wants to do.
Yeah, I think talent. Yes, I think that gets amplified, or the need for that gets amplified. And I think you got to be a little bit of a gamer too, which I think Will Howard is. I think he'll show that.
Yeah, we'll see. So we get to hear from those two guys, Ryan Day and Will Howard, and also Jim Knowles. So just kind of a vibe check with Jim Knowles. He seemed really just down throughout the month of August. Like, I don't know, is he getting excited to play a game on Saturday to see what he's got? I don't know what other scheme things to ask him at this point, because he doesn't seem like he wants to talk about that at all, which I get. But like, maybe he'll smile. Maybe he'll have a cup of coffee on Tuesday. I don't know.
You've been very and I think it's nice. You've been very concerned about Jim Knowles and just making sure that he's in a good place.
I just love to talk to him so much, and he doesn't seem like he's in a great mood this month. But training camp's a grind. I get it.
Yeah, it's a grind, and it's probably more of a grind too when you're already very good and you're trying to find those edges to improve. Right? I bet that's probably more mentally taxing, I would think, than the energy that I think is like natural to just starting over fresh somewhere and having a brand new scheme to work guys into. It's like he's in his 3rd year in a scheme. They have talent all over the place. people expect this to be the best defense in the country. You got to grind a little bit, I think, to make sure that you are that. If you just ran the same play every down and rolled your top 11 out there, you're probably pretty good defense, but you want to be the best in the sport. So you gotta find those little areas where you can improve. And it seems like Jim Knowles has been trying to do that. So I hope that the opportunity to like put it out on the field and maybe, I don't know, maybe pitch a shutout against a team in Akron that's not particularly good might reinvigorate him and have him showing a little more energy. I honestly I don't have a ton of questions about the defense at this point. I think a lot of the stuff is like personnel rotational things that I just don't think he's probably going to answer, and we'll get answers soon enough, right? That the main guy, I guess, is Arvell Reese, and what this surge means in terms of playing time, and if it is in any way similar to like Raekwon McMillan and Curtis, what was Curtis's last
Curtis
name?
Grant.
Curtis Grant. Thank you. They call him Curtis Jones for some reason. Curtis Grant in 2014. I don't know if I'm all the way there yet. I probably am not all the way there yet. And obviously Jim Knowles wasn't around for that. So if I said like, hey, is this a Raekwon McMillan, Curtis Grant situation? Like, what are you talking about? But I would like to learn a little more from Jim Knowles about, I guess, one, what he's seen from Arvell, and then two, what exactly that means in terms of playing time for Arvell when Cody Simon obviously is this team starting Mike linebacker and is important to this team in a few different ways.
I think that's key, not just for someone like Arvell Reese specifically, but for Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. Like, okay, you are going to say the coach thing that you have to win every game one at a time. But like, we know that this is a build up, ramp up towards a Big Ten road game at the end of September, and then Iowa, and then Oregon. Like, you don't have to diminish the opponents in any way to also say, well, if Ohio State takes care of their business, what would you like to do with all of these young guys? You keep saying it's going to be a 16-game season and you want to play more depth and you want to develop depth because you know that things are going to pop up along the way. Like, what's the plan to actually do that? I'm assuming that they have one. Let's give them the grace and the courtesy that these are highly paid, very intelligent football coaches. I don't think they're just gonna be like, well, we're gonna find out what the score is on Saturday and then we'll do something different with the personnel. Like, they have to know that things are probably going to go reasonably well for them. Do you have intentions to put an Arvell Reese or a Caden Curry or Jermaine Matthews in situations while it's not 50-0? Like, is that part of your plan? And again, coming from a spot where I always believe that the best players need to play in the situations where it's most important, the high leverage. That's what the whole defensive line conversation from the last several years has revolved around. But that's not this. Like, that is not Akron. That is not Western Michigan. That is probably not Marshall. So, are you going to learn more? What's your preference? Do you want to play that depth and have them maybe out there with some other starters, or would you rather it be 35-0 and then just let them run a full offense or a full defense and let whatever happens? Like, I don't really know. I have heard Ohio State say over and over that they want to play and develop depth, but I don't really, and I guess we'll find out on Saturday and then a week from Saturday what that actually looks like, but I don't really know what their plan is to do that. And there have been years where we haven't actually seen them do that at all.
Yeah, I actually, that is worthwhile for Jim Knowles and Ryan Day. I think even that's not a wait and see thing for me, because that is it's like a philosophical shift we're talking about, and even playing young guys in blowouts earlier would be a philosophical shift, but like playing depth in the first quarter, it's just not something that's happened a whole lot, especially on defense. But I think for like the whole team, like, every now and then you'll see receiver like stretch to a fourth or fifth guy, and they'll roll some running backs through there, but I think like tight end will be the tell, right? If we're seeing a bunch of tight ends run through there in the first half of that game, I think that'll be an indication that things are a little bit different, but it's mostly going to be defense. And I actually don't know, like, Ryan Day from the offensive side has always said that's up to the position coach. I would assume it's up to the position coach on defense as well. But sometimes it's felt like maybe it hasn't been. So I don't know. At least maybe up front, I guess it has been. But in the back end of the defense, it feels like it's kind of what Jim Knowles wants. So is Jim Knowles, I guess, embracing anymore the idea of trying to play a little more depth in the back seven of the defense. And to your point, not just when you're up 45-0, but it's the third drive of the game. Maybe it's 14-0. The game is still quote unquote in the balance, although it's Tuesday morning and the game is already out of balance, in my opinion. So, but we'll see how that goes. So that is a key thing I think to watch for the game, because I think it will inform us about how Ohio State wants to handle its business for the entirety of the season. But I also think it's worth asking about now, because they've had a long time to think about how they want to do that. To your point, I don't think they're just going to show up on Saturday and wing it and see what happens. I would think they have a plan on how to incorporate more depth into the operation, since they've been talking about it so much.
Well, if they don't, it's Tuesday, and they might want to get to work on it, because they do play a game in the Horseshoe on Saturday. Thank goodness. It is the season opener for Ohio State. Later on today, Tuesday, those three people, Jim Knowles, Ryan Day, Will Howard, will be talking. We will have coverage of that for you coming at the podcast, as we always do. We'll have some snap judgments after that. We'll be back for some Woody Wednesday action after that on the podcast daily, as well as we ramp it up, baby. The opener is another day closer. Thanks for getting there with us on the podcast daily. He's Bill. I am Austin. We will talk to you later.